We're joined now by Courtney Buechert, who is the General Manager of the San Francisco office of McCann Erickson. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
What drew me to this, as you know, is I saw a press release from your company, which I know very well, and it's one of the largest in the world. Mm-hmm. I think you were announcing the huge new HB account, but they mentioned that you were doing the Microsoft account out of San Francisco. Mm-hmm. And we've talked a lot about this program, about businesses leaving, businesses moving even to other parts of the Bay Area because how difficult it is to do business in San Francisco. But here you are doing the Microsoft account, which I think most of our viewers have seen at one time or another, and we may be running it just to remind them. Mm-hmm. You're doing that in San Francisco, not Silicon Valley, not Los Angeles, not New York, and why not Seattle, where Microsoft's located?
Oh, that's a fair question. There was a conscious decision on Microsoft's part in hiring McCann Erickson to build an agency partner, someone to grow with them from a place that had access to the one thing that Microsoft needed the most, which is talent. San Francisco has a long history of being a creative hotbed. It's never been the scale of the markets like New York or Chicago or Los Angeles, but this was the place where, almost like a refugee camp of talent, very talented creative people who said, enough with the corporate enterprise, I'd like to have greater control over my own creative vision and destiny, came to San Francisco starting in the 60s, late 50s and 60s. And it has grown in that reputation of being sort of a camp of iconoclasts. And Microsoft felt that in order to grow their brand and to articulate their vision, they really needed the best creative talent they could find, and this is the marketplace that they settled on.
All right, now you please connect it's an optimistic view and it's an idealistic view, but now I'd like to see how do you connect the dots there? What kind of creativity was here, and how have you utilized it, and why could it not happen somewhere else with our creative people?
Think of the interesting confluence of San Francisco going back to the late 50s and 60s as an epicenter of social change in California and in the country. And the type of people who gravitate, musicians and designers and restaurateurs and social activists, this was a place that was safe haven for people of a lot of really progressive views and instincts. Mm-hmm. Now you combine that with, this was also and concurrently the birthplace of
the personal computer.
The domestic technology.
Right down the street.
Absolutely. And you know, in school, you would have said these were two completely different folks. This was math club versus right. versus drama club, and yet here they grow up, these two epicenters of strength grow up together, and it's the blending of the two. And that's what makes this place unique.
And so how do you utilize what talent, and how do you utilize it in this unique way in San Francisco for not only Microsoft, but I imagine you have many other accounts.
We do.
Maybe you could tell us a couple of them that the viewer may be familiar with, but not realize they've been produced or created here.
I think it's fair. McCann Erickson's been in San Francisco since 1917 as a functioning advertising agency. It actually opened up as the second office outside of New York to handle Del Monte Foods. So it's been in the market for a very long time. But Microsoft has been a transformative account for us because the skills and the talent necessary to handle their business, not only here in the US, but in 32 countries around the world, not only for Windows operating system software or Office desktop applications, but Xbox and MSN and all the diversity of things that they do.
All that's being done out of San Francisco?
All of it's being done from here globally. And so it brings in a lot of different skill sets, but it also brings in a lot of different cultures. And so first off, the fact that we have people from around the world as part of the Bay Area allows us to draw upon a lot of cultural influences. But we do a lot of bringing people in from other countries to work here and sending people from here to work in other countries so they become sort of better marketers around the world. It's a very peculiar thing for what is essentially a relatively small business market.
It is. Let's take an example, though. Let's go back to the kind of Microsoft campaign that you've been running, this realization of potential. Mm-hmm. We're not plugging Microsoft, we're looking at the product that you created and how that works its way around the world and how it works its way through different media. Yep. Could you kind of give us the evolution of how that happened and then why all that creativity in the Bay Area helped make that happen?
Sure. Microsoft had been facing a challenge as they had grown, a lot of concerns from competitors and ultimately from the government about how they were growing their business and whether or not they were motivated by all the right things. And the time came where the team at McCann Erickson felt that we should talk to Microsoft about telling their story, to use advertising not just to sell products, but to talk about what's driving Microsoft's development of products. And they felt that the time was right for them as well, and so we developed this campaign. It was originally designed to run in places that we thought most of our more vocal critics were coming from: Silicon Valley, Washington, D.C. And it was essentially a message about this is why we do what we do. So as you become concerned about our scale, understand that it comes with good motivation and good intention. Now, knowing that we were doing it in two specific marketplaces, it was kind of easy to speak to the people who we were speaking to because we knew who they were, we live with them, and we know what their issues are. But the reality is that it isn't just major critics that want to know what Microsoft's motivations are. Everybody who uses their products do. So the campaign grew to become a global campaign. But the important part about any sort of confessional dialogue, any sort of discussion of your motivations, is it has to be a very personal exchange. You can't create one campaign and then expect that you can run it the world over and that it resonates truly the same way with everyone. So what we did is we used our McCann Erickson network. We have agencies and offices all around the world, as well as people who are from countries all around the world here in San Francisco. And we created executions of that campaign uniquely market by market. So the story in Japan came from Microsoft in Japan and the
And how did
agency
it
in Japan.
change when it?
It is a story that is tapping hopefully fairly universal human themes about potential and opportunity, but it was told in a uniquely Japanese cultural context.
The content of the
content of the ad, the dialogue, the relationships between people in the ad, the execution was done.
You know, it's
in
interesting though. I've heard that one of the problems that they find in Japanese schools and even Chinese schools is creativity and personal realization is something in opposite to regiment, doing what the teacher says. It's a unique American attribute to be rebellious and to realize your potential, not your parents' potential or society's potential.
Right.
How do you cross that boundary culturally in countries where they don't even know what that means?
That's actually a super good question, especially in the execution that we did with for the Japanese marketplace. It was a story of great respect. It had respect for tradition. It had respect for a father's business that a son had inherited and transformed and took global.
Ah, there's the word.
So it was the ability to. It wasn't about rebellious invention. It was about progression.
I see.
In other parts, in other stories from around the world, however, had very different themes to them, but they were all about something new happening using technology.
I see. And now you're at the front end of the HP account.
We have won a significant portion of the personal systems group, which is computers and
Pretty big.
PDAs.
That's the old compact, probably a whole compact.
Exactly right. Very large assignment.
Again, I ask you, you would think that, does it make that much difference that it's here in San Francisco than, let's say, in one of those wonderful office parks down in Silicon Valley, right near HP?
The creative talent that are the storytellers, which I consider advertising professional storytellers, or we're sort of the Cyrano de Bergeracs of commercial business. We help tell a story from someone who has difficulty telling it for themselves to people who want to hear it in ways, and so the dialogue and relationship can begin. I do think it's important because a lot of the creativity that's manifest in Silicon Valley is a very technical creativity. It's the genius of engineering.
Yes, mathematical.
Ours
Which is an art too.
Absolutely.
Mathematicians see it as an art and as artistic expression.
The fascinating thing that a lot of software engineers are actually tremendous musicians, and it's where sort of the rational brain and the emotional brain re-meet on the other side of the spectrum.
Yes.
As it relates to why being in San Francisco matters is the storytellers live in the cosmopolitan area around, in the Bay Area.
So there's something still almost magical about San Francisco that continues to regenerate itself, and you're saying that not only is it weird, innovative, experimental theater or dance, it can have an application in a commercial sense.
Absolutely. The last 20 years, San Francisco has been one of the most influential global advertising markets. The creativity from this city has actually influenced how Madison Avenue markets, how the major advertising centers of London and Paris and Rome and Frankfurt market. And there's a long tradition. It traced back to one gentleman in his agency, a gentleman by the name of Howard Gossage. And in the 50s and 60s, he had a point of view, which is, we now, I think of as very uniquely San Franciscan, which was using marketing to speak to the highest common denominator rather than the lowest common denominator, respecting the time and respecting the intelligence of the consumer, and performing a bit of theatrical education, not just, hard sell. And generationally, Howard Gossage begat people like Hal Riney, one of the true icons of the industry. Hal Riney begat Jeff Goodby and Rich Silverstein, which is the dominant creative agency not only here in San Francisco, but actually in the United States.
In public relations or also advertising?
Advertising in particular, public relations as a related offshoot. But there is a sort of a tone and a voice of under-promising and over-delivering, and a cleverness that says, if I'm going to borrow 30 seconds of your television viewing time, I'll reward you with some cleverness and some entertainment and obviously some important information as well. And so there's a lineage of that.
I see. Do you see any movement of more larger firms to San Francisco?
I expect we'll see more. San Francisco's advertising market grew disproportionately during the dot-com era, and then it suffered equally.
Yes.
There was a recognition that it probably overdeveloped by 40% and then corrected right back down again. So if you look back and go back to 1998, the agency population is pretty similar to what it would have been if you just sort of tracked it linearly, but it had this like so much of the economy had this amazing blip. The creative power is still here, and it continues to attract large-scale national, if not global businesses. Microsoft having become almost one of the anchor businesses. It is the single largest account within McCann Erickson worldwide. And the headquarters of McCann Erickson is in New York. And to think that a business of that scale is running right out of here in San Francisco.
It is. That was the original impulse that I needed to have you come on the program, because we have tried to see the future of the city, and especially in terms of its artists who have to leave the city for one reason or another. Does it mean that with these kinds of accounts, artists do have a place to do their work, or do you really rely only on a few artists? Is it easy to break in and get involved with these kinds of projects? I
think it's an industry that's continuously hungry, almost voraciously hungry for diversified talent. It isn't just talent, but it's talent across a remarkable array of skill sets. You think about it, we're both sort of reflectors and influencers of society, and every aspect and facet, from music to fashion to food to architecture, has a material impact on what we do.
And in the way you do the media now, it includes all that.
Well, that's the other part, is that we've invented wholly new mediums in the last 10 years that weren't available. The town crier led to a newspaper, led to radio, led to television, and now we've added mediums that allow consumers to interact and almost lead the relationship. It's a peculiar time.
Fantastic news for the city. I'm glad we did this program. Courtney Buechert, thank you for being with us.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time. For program schedules, post-production notes, and free streaming video of select interviews, visit our website at www.sfunscripted.com.